Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Backer and welcome to Off the Wall Novels. Joining me today as my co-host is one Pringle Backer. And this is my first video of the new year, so I just wanted to give you all some updates. I've been reading The Shadow of the Torturer, which has been a lot of fun, and so I'm going to do some readings from that and talk about it a little bit. Beyond that, I've upgraded my equipment, which I'm pretty excited about. I got a new monitor for my camera, and I also got a new audio interface that I got to use today because I'm going to be on a podcast that's up and coming from a TikToker that I met named Kyle Johnson. He actually gave me some really good notes on my book here behind me that made it what it is, so I appreciate that, Kyle. And he'll be releasing his new podcast on Apple Podcasts called What Are You Reading? And that should be out in a week or so. I'll post it here and then also have the link so that you can check out that podcast. It's pretty cool. Kyle's an awesome guy. He has a really big following on TikTok and has really good taste in books, and he goes live very frequently. So if you haven't checked out TikTok for book content, I highly recommend it. A lot of people are critical of the medium because it's very short videos, but I actually think that challenges you to be very concise when you're talking about a book or a big idea, and so I like that challenge. And then if you want the deeper dives, we still have that here on YouTube. So that's been really cool. I did forget to mention that Lionel, I got it into a bookstore here in Brooklyn. I got a consignment deal at a place called Human Relations, and so I'll try to get some footage of that and insert it in one of these videos, so check that out if you're here in Brooklyn. It's always exciting to have like a physical copy of your book in a store. It feels very cool. And also, I'm going to be releasing some music later this year. I've been sharing it with a few people just to get some feedback. Very cool response so far. A lot of it has to do with my encounters with quitting marijuana. And so I'll go into greater detail on that in future videos, but stay tuned. I'm probably going to release it track by track and then the entire 5 or 6 songs all at once they're finished. Beyond that, I have been watching a lot more movies. One of my favorites recently has been The Long Goodbye, I think by Robert Altman. And even though it was made in the 70s, it has a very contemporary feel in the writing and the dialogue in particular. Elliot Gould is the main character, Marlowe, and he just has a lot of really fun one-liners and charisma that I think translates really well to a contemporary audience. So I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you like noir. I know I have some Pynchon fans who follow me on this channel. I think that it's very similar to a lot of the heightened fun noir that we can see in Gravity's Rainbow and Crying of Lot 49, so definitely check that out. It's available on the Criterion Collection. I also noticed that Under the Silver Lake, which is another huge favorite of mine, seems to borrow different shots and different style elements from The Long Goodbye. And so I think that if you've seen that before, it will be a rewarding watch for you to check out The Long Goodbye. In addition to that, I saw a really cool movie that's free on Netflix called Buster's Malheart. This is just such an awesome movie, and it's definitely not perfect. It's got some stuff that's a little cheesy. Some of the dialogue I found a little bit cheesy, but it's very psychological. It stars Rami Malek as this guy who's working nights at a hotel, and so the first half of the film has a lot of commentary on like anti-work sort of stuff. And he begins hallucinating and kind of losing grip on reality. And about halfway through, you think you know where it's going, and then it really flips itself on you. And it's one of those that, for such a small cast and presumably small budget, it seems more than the sum of its parts, because we get this interchangeable, or these two interchanging storylines of Buster working at this hotel and being with his family, and then also this version of him that's like homeless, very long beard, and he's breaking into people's vacation homes in the winter and living in them. And again, it really goes a direction that you just do not expect at all, and it seems to really send your mind in all of these different directions, which I think kind of separates a small feeling movie versus a big feeling movie. And sometimes a big feeling movie has to do with a big ensemble cast, and there's a lot of different elements, a lot of production design. But again, what's cool is this is a pretty small cast, very contained, but the ideas in it and the philosophical perspective that it has is so cool. it seems to make it feel like a big movie, even though the elements are small. So as I mentioned, I have been reading The Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. This book got recommended to me several times through TikTok, and over the past couple months, I have been trying to change up what I've been reading, and a lot of people mentioned on TikTok that it has a very literary feel to its genre elements, and that piqued my interest. That's what I love about Pynchon. That's what I love about David Foster Wallace. They're literary and psychological, but then they also give you a lot of sequences and a lot of elements that are more typical of genre fiction. And so I think that's really fun. You keep it entertaining, but also deep at the same time. And so the main character of this book is the first-person perspective narrator named Severian, and he is in a torturer's guild in this sci-fi version of Earth, spelled U-R-T-H. And what's really cool about this book is that a lot of the aspects of the world are not explicitly revealed. It's these very glancing ways of mentioning the different rules of this world. And so, to be honest, I'm about halfway through the first installment of this series, not even really sure what this world is. I'm at some passages I'm having trouble even imagining it, because when you think fantasy, I think sometimes you just think castles, like you immediately go to Lord of the Rings, but there's a lot of technology in this book too that gives it more of a sci-fi bent, and this main character is unreliable too. So I've said different times on this channel too that with a first-person perspective narrator, it can be difficult to evoke dramatic irony because you want the reader to pick up on something that the narrator himself does not pick up on, and that can make the narrator come across as very stupid sometimes, that they'd have to be so unaware of this subtext that they're communicating to the reader in order for it to be communicated. Whereas I think it's done very well in this book, that we have a main character who does appear to be very educated and very smart, but then the subtext that he is not aware that he's communicating is kind of his sort of flippant attitude toward violence, which I have found really interesting in this book, that he's a torturer, and a lot of the surrounding characters and other guilds in this society really look down on torturers, obviously because they're so violent. And he's very casually violent to the people in this story. So, for example, they mention this young boy character named like Ita. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Ieta. And it's kind of communicated that it's his friend, and then at one point he just like bashes his head against the wall in order to get him to do something, and not a second thought is given to that. So as verbose as the character is about his interior and about just the different characters that he meets throughout the book, when he's violent to someone, it's just kind of like, yeah, that's part of it. And so like I think that would be a great example of like, oh, it's the notes that they're not playing. They let that simplicity really speak louder than a long description of it would. So I did want to read some sections in here because it gets really psychedelic in a way that I really like. And so this is a description of one of his dreams, that he encounters these characters that it's implied these characters actually exist, either within this dream realm or maybe we'll see them in later installments in the series or just at the second half of this book. So this is a dream of our narrators. The water closed over me, yet I did not drown. I felt I might breathe water, yet I did not breathe. Everything was so clear that I felt I fell through an emptiness more translucent than air. Far off loomed great shapes, things hundreds of times larger than a man. Some seemed ships and some clouds. One was a living head without a body. One had 100 heads. A blue haze obscured them, and I saw below me a country of sand carved by the currents. A palace stood there that was greater than our citadel, but it was ruinous, its halls as unrooted as its gardens, though it moved immense figures white as leprosy. Nearer I fell, and they turned up their faces to me, faces such as I had seen once beneath Giol, which is a river in the story. They were women, naked, with hair of seafoam green and eyes of coral. Laughing, they watched me fall, and their laughter came bubbling up to me. Their teeth were white and pointed, each a finger's length. So I really like the writing in there and just the imagery that he's using. He's going to bed and then encountering these beings, and there is a reference to earlier in the story where he goes in the river Giol, or Gyol probably, G-Y-O-L-L, and he gets tangled in these weeds that cause him to have this psychedelic trip where he meets like a dead master of his in the guild and sees a lot of faces. And he says that these faces that he's seeing in this current dream remind him of those faces that he saw. So they haven't explained what this realm is because he's dreaming here. And the other one, he got tangled in those weeds that made him enter this realm. But it appears to be some kind of alternate dimension that these entities inhabit that he is beginning to contact. And I think this is a really cool way to do suspense in a story, because rather than hinting at some kind of future plot point, it just seems to hint that the world that we are told it is a little bit bigger, and we can expect similar play further in the story. So I'm really looking forward to that. Anything with interdimensional entities, I'm always in. I think that's such a blast. And so I'm going to continue reading this book. I'll probably do another video on it in this vein when I finish it, because I think it's really well done, and I'd like to finish this series this year. I haven't read a book series probably since I was in high school. I've been doing a lot of one-off books since then. And so if you like literary fiction with a genre bent, this would be a really cool book to check out. Shout out to everyone who reads It Must Converse. Noah, I saw that you had this on your TBR for 2022, so maybe we could do a chat about it when we finish Shadow of the Torturer, or just Gene Wolfe in general. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So yeah, you'll hear a lot more from me this year, and Happy New Year to everybody, and have a good day.